Thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, a question that embraces both the military side and the diplomatic side. On the military side, won't the new rules of engagement mean that in the short term, at least, our forces will be more at risk because they will be potentially doing night raids against the Taliban again, not just training, but actually supporting in a more active role, because the Afghan troops are not all up to par here to push back against the Taliban advance. And on the diplomatic side, why didn't the president mention Russia's rearming of the Taliban, which General Nicholson has been talking about very openly? He seemed to be letting Russia off the hook in his speech. And do you have enough people, given the fact that there are not Trump-confirmed diplomatic appointees in many of these positions in the region?
Well, on the military operations side of it, I would really defer to the Department of Defense to answer that one, other than I know the approach is going to be, as I said, similar to what we have had success elsewhere. As Secretary Mattis describes it, it's a by, with, and through approach. And I think that's part of why the need for a step up in troop levels is so we can now at the battalion level organize and help the Afghan Army fight in a different way with close ground advisement at the battalion level and the ability to call in support on a more timely basis as needed to ensure victory as opposed to either stalemate or defeat. With respect to the comment about Russia, to the extent Russia is supplying arms to the Taliban, that is a violation, obviously, of international norms, and it's a violation of UN Security Council norms. We certainly would object to that and call Russia's attention to that. If anyone's going to supply arms, it needs to be through the Afghan government. In terms of our footprint on the ground, we have very competent, capable, experienced people there now. Our Afghan ambassador is remaining on the job at this time. We have a Pakistan ambassador that's been nominated. We hope to have that person cleared through the process soon. And even in the transition in Afghanistan, as Ambassador Hale transitions out, we've nominated Ambassador Bass, very experienced diplomat, been running the embassy in Ankara, Turkey, very complex place. He's very well equipped to step into this situation as well. And we are looking at a couple of different people for the special representative to Afghanistan Pakistan position. It's open currently. It's being filled with a very experienced individual today. So we're ready to get going with very competent people we have, and I'm not at all concerned about the competency level or the experience of the people that we have working on this. I'm quite confident with them.
And India?
This next question, Martha Raddatz from ABC, excuse me.
Sorry, Secretary Tillerson, I know you don't want to talk about the military, but you were just using some military terms and battalion level and that. I know and understand why the administration does not want to talk about tactical moves, but strategy. Don't the American people deserve to know approximately how many more of their sons and daughters will be going back to Afghanistan in a war that's lasted nearly 16 years?
Well, I think, and I don't want to speak for Secretary Mattis, but I think the intent is there will be visibility to troop levels once the decision has been made. I think what the President has conveyed, and I agree wholeheartly with him, is that we are not going to signal ahead what our plans are. We're not going to signal ahead an increase, a decrease, the timing of any of that. It will be driven by conditions on the ground. The only way we can defeat an enemy that is as nimble and as cagey tactically as this enemy is we have to be as cagey and tactical as they are. And we've not been fighting that way.
Could that include strikes in Pakistan?
I'm not going to comment on what it could include, but the President's been clear that we are going to protect American troops and servicemen. We are going to attack terrorists wherever they live, and we have put people on notice that if you are harboring and providing safe haven to terrorists, be warned, be forewarned. And we're going to engage with those who are providing safe haven and ask them to change what they're doing and help us help them. Because in my view, the greatest benefactor, other than the Afghan people themselves, to achieving stability and peace in Afghanistan are the people of Pakistan. They will benefit more than any other nation.
Margaret Brennan from CBS.
Mr. Secretary,
in the back
here. You said no preconditions to talks. Specifically, are you saying that the U.S. no longer expects the Taliban to accept the Afghan constitution and specifically the rights of women? And on Pakistan, did you articulate in specific terms, or do you plan to Pakistan the consequences of their actions, whether it be sanctions, dropping their non-NATO ally status? I mean, what exactly have you communicated or do you plan to communicate?
Well, I had a good call with the Prime Minister of Pakistan yesterday afternoon to give them a bit of a forewarning of what they were going to hear in the President's speech. And also, we did touch on the points I've made to you today. We are going to be engaging with them in a very serious and thorough way as to our expectations and the conditions that go with that. And all of those things you just listed are on the table for discussion if, in fact, they are unwilling to change their posture or change their approach to how they're dealing with the numerous terrorist organizations that find safe haven inside of Pakistan. Again, it is in Pakistan's interest to take those actions. When we say no preconditions on the talks, I think what we are saying is, look, the government of Afghanistan and the Taliban representatives need to sit down and sort this out. It's not for the U.S. to tell them it must be this particular model, it must be under these conditions. And I think that's what the President means when he says we're no longer nation building. Look, we've tried taking certain principles and forms around the world, and sometimes it works, and a lot of places it doesn't work. We don't know what's going to emerge here. We're going to be there, obviously, to encourage others, but it's going to be up to the Afghan government and the representatives of the Taliban to work through a reconciliation process of what will serve their needs and achieve the American people's objectives, which is security. No safe haven for terrorists to operate anywhere in Afghanistan now or in the future.
Tom Rogan with the Washington Examiner.
Mr. Secretary, you mentioned the force protection concerns and Ambassador Bass shortly going to Afghanistan and the SRAP discussions. But how are you going to get someone who is able to go out beyond the wire and negotiate functionally, regularly, in that weekly basis with individuals from the Haqqani network and that force protection concern?
Well, we are going to have to improve the security environment. It is not, the environment today is not conducive to carrying out those types of activities. You're exactly right. And so part of what we're going to have to do is first ensure we're ready to engage when conditions permit us to engage. It again is why Pakistan is very important in this discussion as well. Pakistan can facilitate much of that discussion. And there are other regional players to which this particular conflict and this unstable situation in Afghanistan are important. We've had discussions with the Chinese about a role they might be able to play. We've had discussions with the Russians about the role they could play if they choose to. And certainly regional players in the Gulf, GCC member countries, are very interested in seeing this area in Afghanistan stabilized as well. So there are a lot of partners out here on the periphery that I think will have, from time to time, important roles they can play. Ultimately, it comes down to the two parties, the Afghan government and the Taliban representatives.
Felicia Swartz with the Wall Street Journal.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary. Going back to Pakistan, officials for quite some time, Democratic and Republican administrations, have tried to get the government to stop giving safe haven to the Haqqani network terrorist groups. What leverage do you think you have?
Well, I think it's obviously we have some leverage that's been discussed in terms of the amount of aid and military assistance we give them, their status as a non-NATO alliance partner. All of that can be put on the table. But, you know, at the end of the day, Pakistan has to decide what is in Pakistan's best long-term interest from a security standpoint for themselves and for their people. Quite frankly, as I evaluate Pakistan's current situation, if I were the Pakistan government, I would have growing concerns about the strength of the Taliban and other organizations inside of Pakistan, who seem to be growing their numbers and their presence to the point that at some point they become a real threat to the stability of the Pakistani government itself. I think they need to be thinking about what is in their best long-term interest and how can we work with them to achieve a safer more stable Pakistan in the next decades to come as well. I think it really is up to them. They've got to ask themselves that question. Why does this work for them, and why is this going to continue to support their stability and the survival of their government in the years ahead if they continue to allow these elements to just grow and maintain their presence inside of Pakistan?
Last question. Welcome, AFP.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Don't you fear on the other side that too much pressure, too tough pressure on Pakistan may destabilize Islamabad and may have destabilizing all the region with having Taliban stronger in the country?
That is a concern, and that's why I made the comments I just made, that I think it's important that Pakistan begin to think about its ability to contain these groups as well. It's why, though, we take a regional approach. The U.S. alone is not going to change this dynamic with Pakistan. India and Pakistan, they have their own issues that they have to continue to work through. But I think there are areas where perhaps even India can take some steps of rapprochement on issues with Pakistan to improve the stability within Pakistan and remove some of the reasons why they deal with these unstable elements inside their own country. As I said, other regional players have strong interest in Pakistan. China has strong interest in Pakistan. Having a stable, secure future Pakistan is in a lot of our interest. They are a nuclear power. We have concerns about their weapons, the security of their weapons. There are many areas in which we believe we should be having very productive dialogue that serves both of our interests and regional interest as well. So this is, again, this is not a situation where the U.S. is saying, look, it's just us and you. What our approach is to bring, as I said, these regional approaches is to bring all the other interest into this effort. Much as we've done with North Korea and assembling this global effort in North Korea, I think too often we try to distill these challenges down to where it's just the U.S. and some other country, and only between the two of us can we solve it. We have to enlarge the circle of interest and bring others into the effort as well, and that's what we'll be doing with Pakistan as well.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.